Welcome back, y'all. So today is Unit 0, Day 3 of AP World History. Today we're going to be talking about China. Some reminders before we get started. Please have your history notebook out and in front of you, and you're taking notes as we move through the video. And please make sure that you're also completing the vocabulary, or also known as the key terms, for this video. So let's go ahead and get started. So the key terms for this video are going to be, the biggest one is going to be the Dynastic Cycle, the Mandate of Heaven, the Confucian Bureaucracy, of course Confucius, and his Analects, Ren, Li, Xiao, the Junzi, the five relationships, Daoism, Wuwei, Laozi, Legalism, the scholar Gentry, the Qin Dynasty, the Han Dynasty, and the Tang Dynasty. So our key concepts today are going to be the Chinese political and economic history pre-1200 and the main ideologies in China. So most Chinese civilizations begin before 600 BCE, and these civilizations go through a dynastic cycle, which means that there's going to be a cycle in which all of these civilizations go to, from its rise and creation all the way through to its destruction and new ones put in place. The civilizations are often patriarchal, which is a theme that we're going to see constantly and consistently throughout all of our Chinese discussions. They traded along the Silk Road, and they made some amazing advances in technology. And they traded in luxury goods, paper, silk, porcelain. They're going to create gunpowder. They're going to create fireworks. They're going to create some of the biggest ships that the world has ever seen up to that point. And they're so well constructed that we don't even know how to make them anymore. And they also create something called a Confucian Bureaucracy, which is a civil service system to govern an empire. Right? Now, speaking of empires, our major empires for right now are going to be three. The Qin Dynasty, the Q makes the ch sound, is the first Chinese empire, from 247 to 220 BCE. And the main points of this empire are going to be legalism, and they're actually going to persecute Confucianism. Our next is going to be the Han Empire, which is going to be from 200 BCE to 200 CE, and expanded China to Central Asia. This is going to be the dynasty that creates paper and kind of really builds up the Silk Road. And then we have the Tang Dynasty, and the Tang Dynasty is going to be from 618 to 904 CE, and this is going to show the birth of Neo-Confucianism, reintroduce the bureaucracy, and expand into Korea, Central Asia, and create a tributary empire. Now, all of these emperors and all of these empires believe they have what is known as the Mandate of Heaven. And the Mandate of Heaven is that the right to rule is granted by heaven. And this is actually created by the Xiao Dynasty. And they believe that the Mandate of Heaven is only given to virtuous, strong rulers. So if you're a weak ruler, you will lose your Mandate of Heaven, meaning that heaven says that you can no longer are fit to rule. And to lose the mandate means that someone else should be in charge. And how do you determine whether or not you've lost the Mandate of Heaven? And when to replace your dynasties? Something called the Dynastic Cycle. Now, the Dynastic Cycle is something that looks like this, right? Where a new dynasty comes to power, the emperor reforms the government and make it more efficient, lives of ordinary people are improved, taxes go down, right? Farming is encouraged, but no, man, it can't always be that good forever, right? And problems arise, such as wars, invasions by nomads, the Mongols, and civil wars. Well, taxes go up because you got to fight a war. Men are forced to work for the emperor and army. Farming's neglected. When farming becomes neglected, well, guess what? You got no food, right? The government gets more money because of taxes, and then suddenly people start becoming corrupt, and the government officials are now selfish, so your empire's falling apart. On top of all that, suddenly you now have droughts and famine because you're not growing food anymore because you're fighting, right? Or a flood happens because of the massive monsoons. The poor, the lower classes lose respect for the state and the emperor. They join rebels and they attack landlords. Rebel bands find a strong leader who unites them. The leader attacks the emperor, and the current dynasty is kicked out. New dynasty comes in, and the cycle begins. There's some other ways that you can know that you've lost the mandate of heaven. Some of them we've already mentioned. We just mentioned corruption, heavy taxes, lazy officials and rulers, revolts, invasions, civil war, crime, but also one, natural disasters. Natural disasters. If a tsunami or an earthquake happens and wipes out part of your population, that's obviously your fault as the emperor, and you've lost the mandate of heaven. Or if your society develops bad morals and habits, something completely out of your control as emperor, that's a sign that, we need to overthrow you. You've lost the mandate of heaven. Someone better should be in charge. Right? So not only are these just like foundational things in a government, but they're also outside natural disasters that can affect whether or not you should be in power or not, or the emperor should be in power or not. Now, in about 551 to 479 BCE, this gentleman by the name of Confucius searches for order and searches for kind of bringing structure to society. And all his sayings are compiled in Analects, which we're going to view and read some in class, by his disciples. Now, Confucian ideals are fundamentally moral and ethical in character. They restore the political and social order, and they stress ritual and routine. And they also lead to the formation of the Junzi, or superior individuals. So he is very much that there is a structure, right? You have superior individuals, and then you have people who just are hardworking, which are in the middle, and the people who profit off work or don't work at all in the lower classes. And he actually is going to edit Xiao Dynasty classics for his disciple to study. Now, we have 3 Confucian concepts. Rin, which is a sense of humanity. Li, a sense of propriety. And Xiao, filial piety. Now, filial means children. It means you're taking care of your children. Filial piety means that you're giving your all to your children. And he's cultivating these superior individuals in order to bring order to China. Now, the basis of society is 5 relationships and taking care of your kids. Number 1 is the relationships between the ruler and subject. Number 2 is father and son. Number 3 is eldest brother to youngest brother. 4 is husband and wife. And 5 is friend to friend. And of course, making sure your kids are taken care of. Because without the kids, they can't go forward. Now, the Confucian social hierarchy looks very different than Hinduism. Now, at the top, you have the Gentry, which are going to be these wealthy landowners or intellectuals who own land and are very wealthy. Of course, these are going to be those superior individuals. Beneath them, you have peasants, and most Chinese are peasants, and they're peasant farmers, and they work the land and live in small villages. Now, underneath the peasants, you have the merchants. Confucianism expresses very hard-working moral ethics. If you're not working hard, you're not going to be higher in the social hierarchy. So merchants who are rich but don't own land are considered lower than the peasants because they're not working hard. They're making profit and they're working off other people's work. Right? Because they work off other people's work. Right? And some buy land and educate their sons and become the scholar gentry and the gentry at the top. But if you're just a merchant, you're at the bottom. Now, we move on to legalism, which is one of our first isms, like with Confucianism, right? This is a doctrine of statecraft. This is a very practical, ruthless, efficient approach. There is no concern with ethics or morality. It is either right or it is wrong. There is very little in between, right? There's no gray area, because in a lot of systems, there's what you can do and what you can't do, and there's a lot of area in between. In legalism, no. You broke the law, game over. You're getting in trouble, right? And this is going to be the doctrine used by the Qin Dynasty. Now, legalism in practice. It is the state's strength, the government strength. And their strength comes from agriculture, military force. Right? If you can grow food, we can eat, we can conquer. Right? And this discouraged a lot of trading and education in the arts. Well, what this means is legalism, since it's right and wrong, they don't care about the people. The people are like, whatever, the government's more important. And this calls for harsh penalties for even the most minor infractions. Right? Because again, it's right and wrong. There's no gray area. Since there's no gray area, oh, you stole a loaf of bread? Even though you're trying to feed your family? Nope. Right? You're going to get harsh punishment for that. So that's legalism. Now, Daoism is like the opposite of legalism. Right? They believed and they preferred philosophical reflection and introspection. They understand natural principles and they live with harmony with them. And this is Daoism. And Laozi, the founder of Daoism, writes the Tao Jing. So it's Daoism or Taoism. They're the same word, right? The Tao Jing or the Tao Jing. And Taoism is in the philosophical sense. Taoism has what is known as the Tao or the Tao, and this is the way of nature and the way of the cosmos. It is opposites in balance. Everything is complementary. Where there's a good, there's a bad. Everything is in balance, and they are very passive and yielding. If you do nothing, you will accomplish everything. Right? So it's very, very much not going to set well with Confucianism, which is all about hard work and structure and order and all these things. And Taoism is like, nah, man, I'm just going to chill. Right? It's going to get done one way or another. It's fine. Like, it's going to have, like life life happens, right? It's okay, right? And Confucianism is like, no. Confucianism is you're going to work. Well, Taoism actually takes it to the next level, and a doctrine known as Wuwei. Now, Wuwei Taoism, or Daoism, is disengagement from worldly affairs. This calls for a simple, unpretentious life. We live in harmony with nature. But as I just said, it's going to serve as a really bad, it's going to serve as a kind of bad in the Confucian eyes as a counterbalance to Confucian activism. Confucianism is to work hard, family, relationships, and Daoism's like, yeah, I'm just gonna chill, man. It's fine. Like it's like life's gonna happen. That's their problem. That's not my problem. I'm over here. I'm just vibing, right? And Confucian is like, you need to be working. Daoism's like, no, I don't think I need to be working right now. It's cool. And that's gonna serve a lot of contention. So, again, make sure that you've taken notes for today, and make sure that you have completed your vocabulary. And again, of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out during class time, the beginning of class, or in the middle of class when we're talking about it, and I'll see you in class.